Breaking Records Radio and the place to be. You know what it is. It's your host, Maloney. And I have to call this guy a legend doesn't even do justice in the field of what we do in hip hop media. This guy's not only a pioneer, but his legacy, it's unparalleled to very many. A lot of people that we respect in this hip hop media field do not have the legacy and the accolades of which this man had. And I'm very honored to have him here with me today. We have Soren Baker. How is it going, my friend?
Maloney, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, man. And like I said before we started recording, I was a little naive to how deep your legacy actually really went. I'm a huge fan of Unique Access. I love the content you do. I think it's very, it's reminiscent of, kind of what I got into this doing, why I love it. I love interviewing the legends, some of the people that maybe, over time may not get their just due, their flowers, but have contributed largely to the legacy of hip hop culture. And when I discovered your channel, Unique Access, it was very, very much what I got into this for, why I loved it. So, to be able to have you here and talk to you today is an honor. But, upon researching and really understanding how deep your legacy goes, it's even more of an honor, man. So thank you for your legacy, your contributions to the culture. And I look forward to the conversation, my friend.
Yes, sir. Let's make it happen. Thanks for the kind words.
Hey, no doubt, man. And with that being said, so being that I am maybe naive to some of your history, I would like to kind of set it back, kind of go over a little bit of everything, if that's okay with you.
Yeah. I grew up born and raised in Maryland. And when I was 10 years old, one of my friends I'd asked one of my friends if he knew anything about rap. And he was like, yeah, I could make you a tape. This is back in the day when there were cassettes. So he made me a tape. His name's Tom Erdely. And on this tape changed my life, man. It had Day-to-Day Nightmares. It had LL Cool J, I Need a Beat. It had the show by Dougie Fresh, To Get Fresh Crew featuring MC Ricky D. It had Roxanne by UTFO. It had Big Mouth by Houdini. It had Freaks Come Out at Night by Houdini. Just on and on and on and on. You Talk Too Much, Run the MC. And I was blown away by these songs because of the storytelling, like with Dana Dane, the force of the LL Cool J, the visual stuff that Dougie Fresh and Slick Rick had going on with the show, and the humor of Roxanne by UTFO, and Curtis Blow's Basketball was on there too. And I love playing basketball, love watching basketball. So all these things really made me gravitate toward it. I love the scratching and I love the percussion. So there was like everything about it I was just totally enthralled with. And from there, man, when I was 10, I was like, I got to learn everything I can about this because I love it. And then by the time I was 12, I decided, man, I got to figure out how I can, do this for a living or really get involved with it, because 10, 11, 12, my love, appreciation, and desire for rap just kept growing and growing and growing. And so, by the time I ended up going to college, I grew up in Baltimore, I grew up right in between Baltimore and Washington in a little city called Gambrills. And we had the national media because of Washington, D.C., and then Baltimore being a major city. So I was able to get the radio stations of both Baltimore and Washington. And then I was also around a lot of news because Washington, D.C. is the capital of the country. So I was intrigued by journalism. I thought they were always doing cool stuff and talking to cool people. So when I went to college, I was like, oh, let me try to write about rap for my school newspaper. I went to Xavier University in Cincinnati, and they weren't writing about rap. So I just asked them if I could, and they said, sure, but go review some plays first. So when I reviewed one play, and then I said, can I write about rap now? And they said, yes. So then I started writing about rap, man. It's been a blessing ever since,
That's incredible, man. That's incredible. And would it be safe to say that, like, when you were 10 and you first got that tape, and those 2 years that you said were really, kind of the pinnacle of you really diving into hip hop culture and falling in love, would it be safe to say, like, where you grew up, you were almost a bit of an outcast for being so engulfed in hip hop? Like, were you one of the only people you knew who really loved this thing?
I was definitely someone that took it more to an extreme level, but some of my friends definitely liked it a lot and listened to it a lot. And my friend Tom Early had this tape, he listened to it on a regular basis. And then some of my other friends had some rap or liked it a lot, but being 10, 11, it's not like you got a gang of money. So you can't just be buying stuff. And where we lived, there weren't really record stores around. So it was a bit of a chore, but most people had, a lot of my friends had older cousins or uncles or brothers that had a lot of rap. So I was able to, through them, and then talking to my parents and having, cutting grass around the neighborhood or raking leaves or shoveling snow, making some money, I used that to buy rap. So, but yeah, I was definitely, even early on, I was an anomaly in the sense of how much I knew, how much I loved it, how much I cared about it. But it was just, that's my favorite thing in the world.
And see, I can relate to that in a heavy degree, because where I grew up, I'm located in Toronto now, but where I grew up, smaller town, and I'm talking like late 90s, hip hop hadn't really penetrated where I grew up. So when I fell in love with it, I was one of very few kids that I knew who fell in love with it. And that almost made me fall in love with it even more. You know what I mean? And like, I just became this nerd for it and stuff. And it's like nobody else understood it. And it wasn't until I got into high school and you start meeting people from around the city, stuff that you could connect with, and they had the same love for you, right? And then within a couple years, it just exploded, like once Eminem came out and stuff like that, then obviously it became a whole monster of its own, and everybody within years liked rap. But that's why I asked kind of the I didn't mean to word it as outcast, but that's why I worded it like that, because kind of the way you explained it is kind of I see a little bit of myself in that, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
when you do you remember, after you wrote the play for the university paper, do you remember what your first article that you wrote regarding hip hop was?
Yeah, absolutely. My first rap article I ever did was an album review of LOG and the Bulldogs' second album, Roxbury 02119. And I didn't know I didn't know anything about how any of this worked. So I just reviewed an album that I already had. It was out, and it was just the newest thing that I had at the time. And crazily enough, I started doing some writing, and then over the summer, the first group I ever interviewed was the Fugees. They were opening up for Queen Latifah on tour, and they had come to Baltimore at a club that doesn't exist anymore, but I've read that they might be bringing it back, called Hammerjacks. And through the newspaper, somebody had connections at Columbia Records, so blah, blah, blah. I ended up getting to interview them before their show with Queen Latifah. So that was pretty amazing. The first group I ever interviewed is the Fugees.
Wow, man, that's incredible. So this must have been forgive me for forgetting the name of it. I have it. But this would be the project, I'm guessing, around the time they were working on the project that came out before the score.
Yeah, Blunted on Reality. It's their first album. Yep.
Wow. That's incredible, man. So you met, wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. They weren't famous, and I was just going into my sophomore year of college. So it was wild. When I think about it now, it's pretty amazing.
That's incredible. At the time when you interviewed them, did you have did you have the foresight at all to think like these guys could be as big? Because they are at one time the biggest hip hop group of all time, were they not? Wasn't the score broke records, I believe? Did it not?
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah.
I really liked them because of Vocab and the Nappy Head songs, especially the remixes. I like the album versions too. So I thought that they were very distinctive. I thought they could be popular. I wouldn't have thought they were going to sell 6 million copies or whatever they ended up selling. But I would have never thought that. But I definitely thought that they were very distinctive. And because they had the male-female thing going on with Wyclef Praz and Lauryn Hill, I definitely thought that they had a chance to be successful, because that was not only unusual. We had seen like Digwell Planets had a lot of success before them, going gold and stuff. So I knew that that type of thing could work. And I knew that because they had, Wyclef in particular was a musician, I knew that that adds another dimension. Because being from Maryland and going to DC a lot of the time, I got to see a lot of go-go music. And when you get to see live performances, I got to see a lot of go-go artists perform live, but then I also got to see when rappers would tour with a band. I got to see Dig Little Planets perform with a band. I got to see Black Sheep perform with a band. So I could see there was a different element to it. I didn't, unfortunately, ever get to see Stetsasonic in their heyday, but I knew that it was possible for live music to be done in a very successful way, especially commercially. So I was intrigued with the Fugees, but no idea.
And so what year would this have been? Like 93, 94-ish?
It was 94.
94, okay.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, the last thing I wrote about in my school newspaper before summer break was Illmatic. And then that summer I got to interview the Fugees. So it was quite a run.
Oh my gosh. And that was for the university paper when you did the Fugees interview?
Yep, Xavier University.
Wow, that's incredible, man. That's incredible. Do you have any like memories of like was there anything, I don't know, it's just, I mean, I guess at the time it probably seemed pretty like, you know, like kind of, I don't want to say regular, but not, you know, you would, like you said, you couldn't have guessed that Lauryn Hill would go on to be like, you know, hands down one of the greatest female rappers of all time and the legacy that she'd leave and stuff. But like, are there any like pieces of like, you know, your time with them when you interviewed them that like just resonates with you to this day?
Well, the thing that really stands out the most is that I knew Wyclef and Pras were Haitian. And just coincidentally, I think it was my mom had seen in the Baltimore Sun, the Baltimore newspaper, that a Haitian official was going to be in Baltimore that night and was going to be on the radio. So I just cut out this little segment of the Baltimore Sun and I gave it to Pras. And I said, hey, I know you guys are Haitian. This guy's going to be on the radio tonight. I don't remember who it was or what they were talking about, but I just handed it to him and he looked at me just like stunned. That I think I cared that they were Haitian, but then on top of that, oh, wow, this kid actually is giving me something that represents my culture that probably most people don't know much about or care about. And I could tell that meant a lot to him, at least relatively speaking. It just made an impression on him, I should say. And because of that, I just, you know, that's how I try to be, is connect with the artist. But I also understood like when you can really connect with the artist, it makes a big difference. So.
Wow, man, that is so cool. I can't believe your first interview was the Fugees. That is insane.
Yeah.
You got off right to it. You got off right off the ground running, eh?
Absolutely. I was very fortunate.
That's incredible. And speaking of the Fugees, did you happen, I'm sure you have, being the hip hop head you are, but did you happen to hear the phenomenal verse you just did for Nas's King's Disease?
I did. King's Disease Part 2. It's as if she stepped out of 1998 and it just kept it going, man. She sounds great.
That's incredible. That verse was like, to me, I think that, I don't know, it's hard to say, but I just because of the meaning behind it and, you know, how close, you know, I hold Lauryn and how high I regard her, I say that's verse of the year so far for me.
Ooh. Yeah, it's a great one.
That's incredible, man. So from going from university, what was your first actual like your gig that you were getting paid for doing hip hop journalism?
Well, the great thing is Xavier University actually paid us to write for our school newspaper. Now, it wasn't much. It wasn't much. My first article I got, when you wrote an article, at least my freshman year, you got $5. And then, but that was very important for me too, because that was the first time I realized, wait a minute, I could make money doing this. Like before, I just thought it was this abstract idea and I'd have to get lucky and all this other stuff, which of course I had to. But that was the first time where it really, really hit me that it was possible to make some money doing something I loved. So I used that also as an opportunity to send out stuff to all the different newspapers and magazines that I saw in Cincinnati, in the Baltimore, Washington area, and then also nationally that wrote about rap. So I started freelancing for a bunch of magazines my sophomore year because I had built up, I'd sent them all my clips from the Xavier Newswire. And then I started getting referred by people in Cincinnati to some of the Cincinnati media places. So Tanya Pendleton, when I was a sophomore, gave me opportunity to write for YSB, which was a BET publication. And then Billy Johnson Jr., who was at Rap Sheet at the time, ended up being one of my best friends and one of my mentors. He gave me a lot of work for Rap Sheet. So my sophomore years where I really started doing a lot of writing. And that was amazing. You know, I was getting a little bit of money. I was getting national exposure. And then I just kept repeating the cycle. Once I wrote for one place, I'd send those clips to the places I didn't write for, like The Source or Vibe, or a little bit later, Double XL, all the magazines I could find. And that's just how it just kept going, man, because I wanted to be, you know, I still want to be considered the best, but I wanted to write for everybody. I wanted to be, you know, respected and known as a writer. So I wanted to write for everybody.
That's incredible because to me, you know, one philosophy I've always held close to me is, you know, if somebody doesn't give you an opportunity, you create an opportunity for yourself. And the way that you just explained that is very much so what you did. Like, you're like, okay, you know, I got this, now I got this as a portfolio. And then you went to where you wanted to go and you basically made your way in. So is that how you started writing for The Source then, just through freelancing initially?
Yes. So with the source, I did some writing for Everybody's News, which was at the time a free weekly newspaper in Cincinnati, and kind of like the Village Voice or LA Weekly in New York or Los Angeles, respectively. But I had done a profile on a Cincinnati DJ named DJ ICD, and after the article came out, he said, "Man, this is really, really good. Have you ever wanted to write for The Source?" And I was like, "Of course." So then he's like, "Hey, one of my boys from The Source is coming next week. You should go with me to the record store when he's here." I was like, "Okay, just tell me when and where." So I photocopied a bunch of my articles and I put them in one of those manila folders, and I just took him to the record store. We met him. His name's Usman Sam. He was doing street promotions for The Source, the street team. Rode around in The Source van, and ICD introduced me to him. And he just looked at my articles right there. He just opened up my little folder and read a few of them, or skimmed through them, I should say. And he said, "Yo, you need to write for The Source, man. I'm going to call Dario Strange, and I'm going to tell him you need to write for us. So, you know, what's your number?" I gave my number, and then like 3 days later, Dario called me. It's like, "Yo, I heard you were going to be writing for us. So what you want? You know, you down?" So that's how I started writing for The Source, man. It was crazy.
That's incredible, man. And one thing I wanted to say, before I push further into The Source, you did mention that in your sophomore year, you really started digging, you like really started writing a lot. And I caught something on your Instagram earlier today, and it was a picture of you and Chino XL. And you had mentioned that you had known him since college. So would that coincide with, like, is that how you met Chino, through doing an interview with him for the publication at the time, or?
Yeah, I met Chino XL through The Source. I got to do, at the time, The Source had a section called Microphone Check, where it was for new and emerging artists. So I got to do the one on him, and I was familiar with his work through Art of Origin, so I knew who he was. And then he was coming out with material that ended up being on his first album, Here to Save You All. So, you know, when I talked to him, we just had a great rapport. You know, I really liked his music and a lot of what he was talking about lyrically, because I thought he was pretty ingenious, the way he was putting the words together and his iconoclastic type of style. And so we just kept in touch. And, you know, it was crazy because I thought he liked me. I thought we were cool and all that. And so when his album came out, you know, as I did with all albums, I just read the credits, and that was the first time I got thanked on an album. So I was like, I'm in college, I'm in my apartment, and I was just like looking at this album. I was like, wow, my name is in an album that's around the world. I just couldn't believe it. And that was like, it was amazing being somebody who loved rap so much to start getting those type of things, and to have it in college, and to have it be another layer of validation that what I was doing was working. It was like, it blew me away. It blew me away. And me and Chino and I are still good friends today, you know?
Well, for one, he was ahead of his time lyrically. Like, the stuff he was dropping holds up today against some of the nicest lyricists. So that just needs to be said first, just speaking on Chino. But secondly, so your sophomore year and your time at the Source actually overlapped. You were writing for the Source while you were in your sophomore year.
Let me think about that. I believe so. It's either sophomore or beginning of junior year, but yeah.
That's incredible, man. That is absolutely incredible. So you've just had the hunger and the drive since day one, and you've just gone for it and never slowed up. What to this day still keeps you motivated to?
I'm losing you.
Me?
I'm losing you.
Can you hear me?
Oh, now I can.
Hold. You can now?
Yeah, you were saying what keeps motivating me?
Yeah, what cause to have that kind of a drive in your beginning stages.
Yeah.
Fast forward 2021 and the amount of content you're continuing to putting out, like, what keeps you motivated all these years to be able to stay that focused? Basically,
part of the reason why I've been working so hard, and I still work so hard, is that when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, this is what I dreamt about. I dreamt about being able to do this for a living, to be able to interact with the artists, to be able to be involved in rap. Like, that's been my dream my whole life. And now that I'm able to do it at a daily basis and at a high level, I just want to keep doing it, and I want to do it at a bigger level. I want to write movies. I want to write more TV shows. I want to have more books. So I want to be the go-to guy for all of that stuff, for film, for television, for documentaries, for books, for interviews. And that's really been my dream since I was a kid. And now that I'm doing it to some degree, I just want to be more and more successful. Like, I just want to keep doing it because I love it. And that's what drives me every day. That's what makes me go for new opportunities and reach out to new artists and keep listening to music all day, every day.
2016, when you started Unique Access, was kind of what you just said. Was that kind of the motivating factor?
Yeah, well, Unique Access, I had people had been telling me for a long time I should have my own magazine, or I should run this or do that. But at that point, no one had stepped to me with $1 million to say, hey, here's $1 million, go run a magazine or have a YouTube channel, or we're going to invest in you significantly like that. So I just decided to do it myself. I knew it was going to be hard, and I knew I was going to be competing with people that had been on YouTube for a long time, people that were far more established, and also people that had been more household names than me, because I was just known as a writer. I didn't really put myself out in the forefront or different things like that. So, but all that being said, I believed in myself, and I wanted to try to make an impact by doing the type of interviews I would do when I did my articles. I wanted to do it for YouTube, and I wanted to do it for myself. So I decided to launch Unique Access Entertainment, and thankfully a lot of my friends helped me get it to where it is, because without them, it wouldn't have been possible. You know, my Dana Dane's a great friend of mine. He's helped me a lot. James Kreisberg's helped me a lot. my friend Ak, Valerie, even my fiance, Davida Chanel Smith has helped me a lot with equipment and suggestions and insight and perspective. So I've had a ton of help. Dalen Williams, my friend at the beginning, did a lot of work with me to help me. So I've just been very fortunate that I've had my friends help me. And then my drive just keeps going to try to, eventually I want to make it the #1 spot for rap interviews and eventually for interviews, period.
So I wanted to ask the psychumentary that you did with Tech Nine in 2008. How did that all come about?
Well, I'm a huge fan of Tech Nine's. I've been listening to him since the 90s. And by the time he had gotten with Travis O'Guin in around the year 2000, 2001-ish, they had, I was trying to do some writing about him, and then I was able to cover him for The Source. So with Angelic, I wrote about him for The Source. And then fast forward in 2002, I'd written and produced the Ultimate Albums episode on Eminem's The Marshall Mathers LP for VH1. So I had shown that to Travis and O'Guin at Strange Music and Tech Nine, and they loved it. And I said, yeah, you should let me do something like that for you guys. And they did. And that ended up being the Tech Nine Experience DVD, which came out in 2004. So then by the time 2006 was coming out, they had gotten a lot of their business stuff in order. And they were then, at the time, through Fontana and Universal, and they had more control and they were doing more stuff. So they're like, oh, if you're down, let's do another DVD. So that's what led to the psychumentary. My friend Steve Reisner and I flew out to Kansas City, and then Tech, Travis, and the Strange Crew took us around, and we ended up making the psychumentary, and that was it was awesome, man. I love Tech Nine's music, and they were definitely one of the biggest, most important, great independent rap labels. So it was great working with them.
That's incredible, man. I know you gotta go. There's so many things I want to, still ask you about. Unfortunately, the connection issues. If you'd be open to it, I'd love to try to get you on here again and maybe have a more concise, consistent interview, and follow up on some of the other things if you're open to it. And I apologize again for the technical delays, man.
It's all good, man. We'll do it again. We'll do it again.
All right, man. Thank you very much for your time, man.
Yeah, and shoot me the link when it goes up, and then I'll promote it.
100%. Thank you very much, Soren. I appreciate your time, and look forward to being able to do it with a little more consistency next time.
All good, man. Well, have a good one. I appreciate it.
You as well, my friend. Cheers.
Breaking records here. Breaking records. The bastard crowd. Hey yo, check it out. Breaking records. Sitting here, breaking records here. Hey yo, check it out. Breaking records. The bastard crowd. Hey yo, check it out. Sitting here, breaking records. They break records, you heard me?